Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. Today we have Unlocking the New Matrix, and we're going to have a Q&A session as well. So in today's webinar, we are going to discuss the latest changes to our matrix, and we're going to point out those to you on my screen here today. But before we get into that, we want to go ahead and introduce ourselves. We are the instructors here at Metrotex. My name is Rachel Hinson. I've been instructor here at Metrotex for a couple of years.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Edith Vasquez, and I'm also an MLS instructor, and I've been with Metrotex for about 3 years.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maggie York, and I've been with Metrotex about 6 years and an instructor for about 5 of those years.
And good morning. I'm the old man in the room here, I guess. I've been with Metrotex about 7 years. My name is W.J. Miles. Been in real estate longer than I care to tell.
Perfect. Thanks, you guys. Alrighty, so before we get into our presentation, we are going to go over just a couple housekeeping things here. Okay, so the first one here is how to ask questions, because we are going to go over all of your questions today. And for that, since we had over 400 people register for today's class, that's a great turnout, we are going to keep everyone muted just so that we can kind of manage those questions. This right here on your screen is going to be a picture of your webinar pane. If you don't see it, you might have to click that little orange arrow right there to pop it out. And your question panes is going to be right down there. It's going to be like a little chat box, and you can type into us. And we are all going to be monitoring that. We will take care of all of your questions. We'll make sure we get to all those. Okay. With that said, we are going to go over the changes with Matrix today. But if you're looking for some specific instruction on really specific things, like maybe setting up an auto email or things like that, we do go over those in our classes. So I just wanted to point out here, this is our MAPS flyer with some of our MLS classes. Those are free to all of our Metrotex members, so you guys are definitely welcome to take those classes. So we've got a few of them here. Advanced Matrix MLS, that's a great one if you're looking to kind of see some of those new changes in action, as well as all these other classes are really good ones here. Okay. Then our next slide here is about the Reso Standards and a little bit about why we're doing those changes. WJ, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So why did we do this upgrade? The National Association of Realtors, way back in 1999, recognized that they needed to come up with a standard for the MLSs across the country. The national brokers, agents working across multiple states, the internet partners were all having trouble working with 600 different MLSs that all spoke different languages. So what they came up with is what's referred to as the Reso Standard, Real Estate Standards Organization. So they are requiring that all MLSs across the United States adopt this Reso standard. So this is why we updated to the Matrix DD, also known as Data Dictionary. So we all have the same fields, the same terminology, and all of that. So this upgrade converted us to that Data Dictionary. If you want more information about it, we do have a page on our website there. If you just go to mymetrotex.com, big-matrix-changes, we've got lots of information there for you. And as we come up with more information that we need to share, we'll put it there.
Awesome, perfect, thank you. And then our next slide here, this is our email address right here, mls@dfwre.com. So if you guys have any questions after today's class, anything else that you guys want us to help you out with, email us there. We monitor that one. We take care of those emails pretty good. So you can reach us there. Okay, so before we jump into all of the kind of nitty-gritty of touching into things, let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is that MLS areas went away, or MLS areas and sub-areas went away. So the decision to remove those areas was something that was made years ago. I think it was almost 5 years ago, decision to remove those. And the reason for doing that, there's kind of a bunch of different reasons. The main one here is that the original MLS areas were mapped by MapsCo. Once MapsCo went out of business, the maintenance of those areas kind of became impossible. They took away the ability to edit, change, update those MLS areas. So for a couple of years now, we haven't had any ability to update those. Also, those area boundaries are subjective. Some of them were school boundaries, which are subject to change. Others were neighborhoods or street boundaries, things like that. Another reason for removing those areas is that the area identifiers aren't useful to customers. If you think about it from the customer or the client perspective, they don't know what, what area 10, area 11 is. Most of the time they're going to know street names or different cities, things like that. And then lastly, the MLS areas are subjective area boundaries, and they can be likened to redlining the maps of old, and any suggestion of kind of discriminatory steering has no place in the future of this industry. So with those going away, we have been encouraging the use of digital mapping layers, custom shapes, using cities, zip codes, things like that to search with. Consumers have become more comfortable with digital mapping, and we're encouraging agents to explore those different tools that are available to you so that you can really, give the best for your business. So the decision to remove those areas is final, and we won't be focusing on that in today's webinar. Today, we're going to be highlighting all of the awesome new changes here in Matrix. So with that said, let's jump over to Matrix and go take a look. Okay, so I am going to pull up the homepage of Matrix, and WJ is going to take it away.
Sure. So when you first come into Matrix, you don't see a whole lot of changes. The homepage here looks pretty much the way it did in the past. Some of the changes are across the top there on the blue bar. If you notice, roster is now right there in the center. That used to be search agents. Now they've made it its own tab and put it under roster. So if you need to find the information about someone, you would just go into search, member, and then put in their name, their ID number, whatever there to find them. Also, real list tax is gone from the top. It's now under tax, and then real list tax, and then the property tax is what's inside of a Matrix, the taxes that we can see through Matrix. Input is now all the way to the right on the end. And this is where you would come in to do the input of a listing. On the home page itself, you'll have My Listings right down there. They're going to limit the number of line items that you see here. Apparently, this is putting a burden on the system every time someone opens it up. So they're going to limit that for those of us that have access to the offices and firm listings and things like that. But if you go back up to the top and under My Matrix, you have My Listings right there. When you go into My Listings there, the top left-hand corner, you can change to the different things. So My Active Listings, pendings, all your different statuses, office listings, company listings, this is not going to be limited. So if you don't find it in that widget on the home page, be sure and look here for what you've seen in the past. If we go back to the home screen, the external links is now changed. You're going to see that they've organized these, where before we just had a big conglomeration of them there. Now they have put them into different topics for us. So the main ones are the ones there at the top that duplicate what's on your dashboard. Instead of having to go back to the dashboard, you could jump into one of the other products there. Two of them, most important there, would be Instanet and Zip Forms at the bottom if you wanted to get into them. And then there is the change on the search menu. We have been looking at this and trying to figure out what had changed. So we finally got the word on this, that as you use this menu, it's going to change. So if you notice on Rachel, if she rolls over residential, it's going to pop out a menu on the right-hand side. This is called a sub-menu. Well, the system detects that you like residential detailed or you like residential quick. It's going to put it in the main menu there for you so that you don't have to go to that pop out. So it may get confusing to you. Why is this showing up the way that it's showing up? But it's the menu doing what it's meant to do. It's trying to make it easier for you to get into the different areas. Okay, and if we go to the property types, so we've got residential, then we have residential income. Residential income used to be the old multifamily. So it would be a duplex and up, okay? Don't get confused and click on that thinking you're gonna find residential properties. If you're looking for a half duplex, a single detached, or single family residence, those you would do residential. Then we have land. Land used to be the old lots and acreage. So land is now its own category. And the commercial side of the database has now been split in two. We used to do commercial sales and leases just all in one bundle in the old system. In the new system, they now have commercial sale and they have commercial lease right there. And then if you go all the way to the bottom, we got cross property search and public records. And of course, you can always hit the more button there and go into the page that has all of the links there. Okay. All right, Rachel.
Alrighty, awesome, thank you. So that is our home page there. So now what we're gonna do is we are gonna jump into a search page. We're gonna go take a look at that search criteria. So for that, I'm just gonna go to search and I'm gonna do residential quick. That's what I use the most and that's what we get the most questions on. So that's what I'm gonna go take a look at. So here's our search page. This page is gonna look pretty similar to you, but there are a few notable changes we're going to point out here. And the first one is going to be over here on our statuses here. Okay, so on our statuses, our actives, coming soons, our active, under contract statuses are all the same, but we have had a couple of them that have changed. The first one here is going to be hold right there. Hold. So hold is going to be the new name for your temp off market properties. So that'll be temporarily off market for some sort of reason, repairs, they're getting it ready for showing, whatever it may be. Another one that we had changed is going to be closed. So closed is going to be the new name for sold or leased. So once something is officially closed out, funded, all of that, it's going to be under closed if that's a for sale property or a for lease property. They're all going to be under closed now. Okay. Another thing that you might notice on this page is that our state here, and this is just kind of the default that you'll see when you come in, we default to having Louisiana and Texas there under the state. And we get some questions about that. So the reason that we have Louisiana there is that the Northwest Louisiana Association of Realtors has recently joined our Netros family in the past year. So we are going to have a bunch of Louisiana properties here in our MLS as well. Now, if you are only licensed in the state of Texas and you don't want to be, getting confused there, you don't want to see any Louisiana properties, that is totally okay. There's a little X right here, and you can X that out. So if I X that out, it gets rid of Louisiana, and I just have Texas here. And one thing that you can do, if you want to default to these settings, so for example, if I know I'm always going to be searching in the state of Texas, and I usually want to see my actives and my coming soons, maybe I don't want to see anything under contract, I just want to see those two, I can get that all set up how I like it. And then I can go over here, there's a little gear up in this top right hand corner. And when I click on that, this very top one here says set currently selected search criteria as my starting default. So I can select that one. And it's going to tell me default criteria set over here. And now every time I come in to do a residential quick search, it's just going to have Texas now. I'm not going to see Louisiana anymore. So that is one thing on here that you can do. Another thing that you might notice is that the state fields, county, city, they all kind of look a little bit different here with how you select them. So I just wanted to show you guys that. Let's use this city field, for example. It used to be, if I clicked in this box, there would be a long list of all of the cities that I could pick from. But now it's just kind of an empty box. So the way that works is I'm going to type in the city that I want to see. So for example, if I'm looking for properties in Dallas, I'm going to type in Dallas. And you see, as I do that, it's starting to guess what city I'm talking about there. So we've got Dallas or Lake Dallas. And all I have to do is click on the one down here that I'm looking for. So I just want Dallas. I'm going to click on that. There we go. So Dallas has now been added. And you'll see it kind of looks similar to my state here. It's been added there. If I want to remove it, I just click that little X. If I want to add another city in there, again, I just click in that city box and I start typing away. So maybe I want to add Cedar Hill. I'm going to start typing that in. You'll see as I type, it's starting to guess which city I want to add. And I'm just going to click that one. And I can add as many in there as I want to. And it's going to work that way for city. It's going to work that way for state and for county as well. And I believe school district too. School district is also that way. Okay, so just a couple of changes. It's a little bit different, but still same functionality. You can still search for multiple states, multiple cities, counties, all that kind of thing. Okay, the zip code field, that one hasn't changed. So that one you're just going to type in. So you do, 76034, and then you do a comma, and then you add your other zip codes in there. So that one's going to be the same. Okay. Just a couple more changes here on our search field. If we go down over here, it's going to be on our right-hand side. You might notice that we have number of total stories in the building, and we also have number of levels. And then in parentheses there, it says inside of the property. So in our old system, we had stories. In this one, it has now been changed to levels. So for example, if I'm searching for a 2-story home, I'm going to check that little box right here for 2 under my levels. Okay, you might be wondering, okay, but why is there the number of total stories in the building? Number of total stories in the building is going to be for if you have a condo property, maybe a townhome, something like that, an apartment that has multiple stories in there. So maybe you have a condo that has 40 stories. Then you could go in here and denote the total number of stories in the whole building. And then levels is going to be the number of levels specifically inside that property. Great. Alrighty, so that is our main changes that you're going to see here on your search page.
So Rachel, back to the setting the default, maybe I want something different for residential lease. Can I do that?
That is a great question. So I set my default here for my residential quick. If I want to go change something for residential lease, I'm going to go back up to search. I'm going to go down to my residential lease. Maybe I'll do quick for that. And I'll pull that up so you guys can see. So this one still has Louisiana and Texas, so I can set a different default for this one. And I'm probably going to want some different defaults for my residential versus my leases. So again, it's the same thing. You just put your changes in here, and then you go to that little gear up top, and it's going to be the very top one. Set currently selected search criteria as my starting default.
And then someone asked earlier, can you state again what close replaced?
Yeah, sure thing. Closed right over here. It's this one. That one is going to be the new name for your sold or your leased properties. So closed is sold or leased. Alrighty, do we have any other questions?
I don't think so, guys. Do you see any others? All right, Edith and Rachel, y'all want to take over?
Me and Rachel? I'm sorry, me and Edith, you mean?
Maggie and Edith, they're going to show
I'm
us.
sorry. I work with so many beautiful women, I get them all confused all the time.
What a save! Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Being in my day, I'll certainly accept it. All right, well, yes, since we don't have any more questions, thank you for showing us the search side. Let's go take a look at our input side so we can kind of get a feel for what has changed for inputting a new listing. And so you'll notice that the tab is still up at the top. You'll click on it as you normally would. And going to the input page, it looks about the same. If you don't have any listings to edit or modify that you're working on or created, you won't have that quick modify. So we will use add new listing right there. And just like our search categories, our property types here have changed. So residential is still as it was before. And underneath, just like we saw for our searches, we have residential income, replace that multifamily, our residential lease underneath that. Instead of lots and acreage, we now have land. And then our commercial, we see broken up there for us as sale and lease. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the residential input form and see what we can see. So your options, as you can see, have not changed. It will still be fill from existing listing, fill from real estate tax, or start with a blank property. And again, nothing has really changed from there. So we're just going to go take a look at our blank property and see what fields have changed here. So the first thing you guys will notice, of course, is looking across the top, that is quite a few more tabs than what we saw before. There is actually 15 tabs now. And I know that that can seem a little daunting when you first look at it. But what they've done here, guys, is where we had a fewer tabs before, they were longer pages. So Rachel, if you'll scroll down a little bit for me on this property info. Property info used to be the general tab that had our property information and our school information. And you'll see that schools actually has the next tab over. So they went through, and what they did is our long pages that we had to work on, they cut them in half and gave them their own space to give them room to grow and add more information. So it's actually kind of a nice thing for us. But on our property info tab, the big ones here is we have property attached, yes, no. Thank you, Rachel. Scrolling down on that side, a few things have moved, but not a lot of changes on that left-hand side. If you move over towards the middle, where as before we had our construction status, the only thing there is now named year built, detail / construction status. So you'll notice a few things have had name changes, a few things have been added, and then a few just wholly, completely new fields altogether. We'll get to see all of them. Even though it's had a name change, the options remain the same. And then over on the right-hand side, our square footage is now square foot / living area. And then our year built has been given a year built source that can be added to your listing now as well. And then as far as our property info tab, there's been a couple of little features added to known fields, like our housing types had a few extras. I think the construction materials had a couple extra added. And then underneath our square footage source, there's been a couple of changes as far as what you can choose, where that square foot source came from or originated. And Edith, can you think of any other big changes on the property info tab? I think that wraps it up for that one.
I think so. The only thing I would mention is the construction material. You may have been used to seeing it at just construction, but that's the same field that it was before.
That's right, and I completely forgot, but she is correct. So whereas it was named construction before, it is now construction material. All right, let's pop over and look at our schools, location and schools tab. So on our location and schools tab, that's really just that lower section of what previously was our general tab. The location information that will usually pull over from our tax record will still pull over from tax record. That won't change, and you won't see a lot of difference in that. And then scrolling down underneath, it's just the school section has been expanded out. But otherwise, no changes to note on this one, guys. All right, let's go look at our rooms tab. So on our rooms tab, the first one that you'll probably notice is levels. Whereas before we had stories, we now have levels. And a change that we were all a little surprised with is we now have 1.5 levels to 3 more, or a multi-split option. So that is kind of cool. We've gotten questions about that over the years, and we weren't even told it was going to happen, and it has. Now underneath room type, well, it's not room type anymore. It is now just type, but that is for your room details. There have been several different rooms added. You should see all of the same ones you saw before. I think there might be one that they moved to a different location, but there have been other room types added for your selection, and each room type has had additional features added as well. So whenever you select on one, so yeah, thank you, Rachel. Whenever you select on one, along with those types, we have additional features to correspond with each. All right, and we're not going to go through each and every little feature because there have been quite a few. You'll just kind of have to go and poke around and see what you can find. But outside of that, rooms is about the same as it was before. Let's pop over and look at our features next. So features is still a pretty large page. It always has been a pretty big page in the input form whenever you come in and add a new listing. The big ones on here is we used to see handicap features yes, no, or handicap features with a list. Handicap has now been renamed as accessibility features yes, no, and accessibility features instead of handicap features. And there have been quite a few accessibility features added to that field as well. So that's really nice to see more options for you. Scrolling down a little bit further in the middle of the page, we now have a basement. There was a basement option before, but it wasn't a basement yes, no. It was inside of a different field for us that we had to go dig for, but it now has its own little yes, no field. Scrolling down a little bit more. Whereas before, and Edith, remind me, what was security features before?
Alarm and security.
It was alarm and security, there we go. And it is now security features. A little bit further down on our page, we now have window features was added. Oh, laundry features, I'm sorry, I skipped one, you guys. Laundry features has its own little section now. Window features a little bit to the right has its own section now. And patio and porch, though very few, also has its own little section and options available. Scrolling back up and looking on the right side of the page, the only big changes here on this one is the garage is now garage yes, no. Is it an attached garage yes, no? And then we've always had garage length and width, but in addition to those two, we now have garage height.
And Maggie, I know that I've been getting this question a lot. When we talk about garage height, what exactly does that refer to?
From what I understood, the garage height, when you Google it, anyways, I haven't asked anyone officially, so it's just an official Google, you guys, is it's the height of when the door is up, what is the max height of a vehicle that can go into that garage. It doesn't want the ceiling of the garage, it wants what is the max height for a vehicle that can enter into the garage. But I would definitely find someone official and ask before plugging that in there.
I did ask Netris on that one, and that is correct. It would be kind of the clearance that you could drive a vehicle through. So from the floor to the top of the garage door.
Thank you. That's the word I couldn't think of. But that about wraps us up for features. let's go and pop over to lot info. And this is another example, guys, because lot info, utilities, and environment used to be all plugged into one very, very large page. And I always got questions on agents trying to find information on that one huge page because it's so easy to get lost in the clutter of it all. So kind of breaking it up into shorter pages was kind of nice. But as far as our lot info goes, the big changes here are going to be, we now have horse permitted, yes, no, has its own standalone field. There we go. And then our lot size to the left of that, acreage. When you click on that drop down, all of the numbers are the same, but it used to be 0.5 dash to show the 0.52 acre. So instead of the dash, they're using that less than sign. So it'll still work the same. It doesn't change how it operates whatsoever, just looks a little bit different. All right, and the only other thing on this page that's been added is the vegetation over there. We now have vegetation as an option. And you'll notice, I don't know if you guys have ever used some of those options, but looking at it, you'll notice where it says grass or heavily wooded, partially wooded. Like what we were saying before, some of these fields are just partials that were taken out of separate sections and given their own space. It's really with you guys in mind to be able to locate and easily find what you need for your listing. So it is kind of nice. And then scrolling down on that page, we do still have all of our waterfront features and information there. That hasn't changed and remains the same. All right, let's pop over and look at our utilities, Rachel. So utilities is actually another really great example of that. The only changes here, aside from additional features being added as options to select, whereas heating and cooling used to be the same field, they've just broken them up into their own areas. Heating has its very own section and cooling has its own section. All right, let's take a look at our environment tab. All right, now environment tab is probably, and Edith, I think you agreed with me last time, or the first time that we saw this, has had the most changes of all of the residential input form, because it was 3 much smaller boxes with with much less options available to us. But whereas we had green and water energy features, green certifications, and then I think solar energy options, it's all been broken up into much individualized and detailed information for you. So we have green sustainability for specifically just that, any methods of green sustainability for the houses or properties that you're trying to list and all of their options. Underneath that is a completely new field, actually. The indoor air quality is one that was completely new and added. Green energy conversion has just its own section that was taken out of that solar information before and plugged into its own little section. Green energy features was broken out from our green water features instead of having them plugged all in together into one very snug little list. They have their own sections, just green energy and then our green water. And then another one like our indoor air quality that was added is our green landscaping. So we've been given a little bit more option as far as the landscaping. And then underneath all of this, whereas we had our green certification and a list that you could select from before, it's been broken up into this down below to provide more information to us. So we get to plug in a little bit more detail as far as that green certification and building verification. So if you'll go ahead and click on that for us, Rachel, so we can see the drop down on there. We still have a list as far as what type of certification it is, building or green, depending on what it is that you need to add. The corresponding information can go with that certification to the right. And then if you do have it available to you, you can go and get that green verification URL. So whenever you see a URL, that is essentially asking you for a web address. It wants to know where on the internet does it live. It's a web address. But a lot of the verifications now, homeowners can go log on to their account and pull off that URL for the green certification. And so if you have more than one, that's all the information for just one. If you need more than one, just like our Rooms tab, down underneath in the bottom right-hand corner is a More option. And so you can go click More and add in as many as you need. And the last thing to note here, you guys, is in the upper right-hand corner, we now have a walkability score. So you are able to add a walkability score to your listing if you have that available to you. All right, let's go over and take a look at our financial tab, and then we're going to take a break, not break, I'm sorry, we're going to take a minute for questions. Go ahead and click on that for me, Rachel. Thank you. So financial has actually had almost no changes to it whatsoever. The only changes you'll note is under proposed financing, there have been many new options added to proposed financing. So I know that there are many in there I already did not recognize, but now there's some that I've never even heard of. So they really went all out and adding them in there for us. So there's a lot, yeah. All right, but everything else on there, possession is the same, loan type, everything else remains unchanged. And with that, do we want to go over a few questions, guys?
Sure. We have a couple of questions on some people are asking, what is a walk score?
So the walk score, and WJ actually explains the walkability score much better than I do, actually. WJ, would you want to explain that one for us?
Well, the walkability score here in Texas doesn't mean a whole lot because we have to drive everywhere we go. But in some communities, it is how far is it to the grocery store, to the pharmacy, to leisure activities. So like Turtle Creek, Deep Ellum, some of those have higher walkability scores because you can get to those type things by walking.
Awesome, thank you. And then what other questions did we see? I did see a question come through about how you list conventional FHA or VA, and that was just on that financial tab underneath the proposed financing. So if those are acceptable loan types for the property that you're listing, they should all be available in there. So yeah, there's your VA, and I think I saw the conventional a little bit earlier, your FHA. There are, whereas I think there were 2 before, 1 or 2, there's like 4 now. So they have doubled. See, there's your FHAs in there.
There were also several questions about level. What did level replace? And what is a 1.5 level?
So going back, yeah, to rooms, levels, whereas instead of levels before, we had stories here. So was it 1 story, 2 story, and they've just swapped that out for levels. We will see total stories later on our condo info page, but that is in regards to total stories in a building. And we'll talk about that a little bit more once we get there. But levels has replaced stories as far as our residential houses and properties are concerned. And I don't know how to explain 1 and 1.5 stories, but I'll try. So from what I understand, it's where you have a full lower, so it's, full 1-story house, and then there's a partial upstairs. It's not the full area, square foot doesn't match. It's smaller than the bottom. It could be a room, it could be just the landing. Maybe I've seen game rooms where you go up the stairs and it's just 1 room in the middle, but essentially it's not a full upstairs. Guys, any input on that one? Yeah.
Oh, I think that explains it. Is the garage height required?
Yes. Yes, the garage height, just like our width and length, is required. So if you say yes, you have a garage, then, or you put how many spaces of garage you have, then yes, length, width, and height will all 3 be required. All right. Did y'all see any other big ones we want to go over? And guys, if we don't get to your questions in between these, we will have plenty of time for questions at the end. So worry not, we will get you. I don't see anything jumping out immediately. Do we want to press on?
I think so.
Awesome. So hold on to those questions, guys. We will get them. So we left off on our financial tab. Next, we're going to pop over. And only thing on financial was that proposed financing has many more options. So after financial, we're going to pop over to our HOA, where you will find that absolutely nothing has changed. It is its own section. It's actually a little bit, for me at least, it's a little bit easier to read. I don't know if y'all remember the HOA management company section was a little wonky on the old build. So this is actually easier to read for me. It's a plus. But other than that, nothing has changed. We're gonna pop over and look at our agent/office. Thank you, Rachel. Now, one of the cool things that I think has changed, and it's not just on agent and office, but this is where we kind of get to see it, is where our supervisor ID is. That used to be, it was a supervisor MLS ID, Edith?
It used to be supervisor license.
It used to be supervisor license. It is now supervisor ID. But the thing that I like a lot is with the agent ID, supervisor ID, wherever you see that agent name or ID, you can now type in their names. So I don't know about you guys. I remember people's names much easier than I remember their license numbers. On a good day, I can remember my license number. So Rachel, if you don't mind showing us, we can, if you know their name, which I usually do, you can type in first and last name, and it should start trying to give it to you underneath. Look at that. It's gonna say, are you talking about? Who are you looking for? And once you find the one you're looking for, when you click on it, it fills it in for you, just like what Rachel has done for us here. And then click refresh. And then look at that over there on the right hand side, there's her name, there's her license ID, there's her phone number. I don't have to type in anything else. So I do think that's really cool. I was telling the other instructors, I think that might be my favorite change so far. Makes it easier. All right, so in addition to supervisor ID is a little bit different. Underneath that, we have our buyer agency commission and sub-agency commission. So the way that these two used to work for us is Rachel would be entering in, all right, we're going to offer 3% to the buyer's agency commission, and we're going to offer 0% to our sub-agency commission. Now, this isn't necessarily incorrect. This is just not how we'll enter it any longer. If you'll notice to the right of each one, we now have, it's still buyer agency type and sub-agency type, but that is specifically for percentage or dollar sign. So what we're gonna do now is, depending on if we're using a dollar amount or a percentage, we will choose it from these two boxes, and the numbers will be alone in their boxes to the left. So in our buyer, we will just put 3. In our sub-agency, we'll just put 0. But we still have to, even with the 0, we still have to put either a dollar sign or percentage sign. So all they've done here is they have moved the percentage over for us. They don't want it in the same box anymore. Okay? All right. All right, the only other new thing on this one, guys, is we now have our list agent and co-list agent texting allowed, and these are yes/no boxes. So if you do want to allow texting to set up for showings or anything other, just reach out to you for questions. You can select yes for allow texting to let everyone know that you are available to be reached via text. And that's it for our agent/office. All right, let's go take a look at our showing tab. So on our showing tab, even though it is named the same thing, over on the left-hand side, we have seller type. But the big change for our seller type is we used to only have 4 options in there. We had builder, individual, REO, and relo for relocation. And now we have many more options than that. We do have our builder still there, individual is still there, but the ones I know you guys will be interested in, yeah, real estate owned. We now can say real estate owned on there, but we have our in foreclosure, our auction. Oh, thank you, Rachel. I almost forgot auction. In foreclosure, our auction. And if we scroll down just a little bit more, our short sale and notice of default are also in there. So that's under our seller type now. Okay. Underneath our seller type, lockbox type. The only thing with that is it used to be keybox type. It is now lockbox type. And with that, we've been given a lockbox location as well. So yeah, under lockbox type, our options, I don't think any of them have changed. They haven't updated or had anything added, have they, guys?
No, the one thing though, I would say if you have a Bluetooth box that you purchase at Matrix, that would be the first option, the blue BTLE, that identifies that it's Bluetooth.
We do get a lot of questions on that. But if you see the BT, that means that is Bluetooth. Thank you, Edith. But other than that, I think our options for lockbox type is the same. But we did, like I said before, we did get a lockbox location. So I have gotten those agents asking, I don't know where they've put the lockbox. They said something about a fence, but I'm not sure. So you can indicate if you have to put it in a strange location other than the door, you can now put that on the listing for your buyer's agents. And then the other big change on this one is our showing requirements. So it used to be showing instructions type and had a shorter, much more limited options available underneath. It has been renamed to showing requirements with quite a few options added to it as well. So I saw several new ones in there. Day sleeper, I don't remember that one before. You want to scroll down a little bit more for us. Key in office, lockbox. So it's not just what type of showing, but also the requirements involved with the showing. So it's kind of a combo box for you, which I thought was pretty cool. And then scrolling down on this page, I believe that that was the last thing that changed. We still have our showing instructions. I know that it's now showing contact phone and showing contact phone extension on the right. That used to be showing appointment phone and showing appointment phone extension. So it's a little bit different. It's now showing contact.
And we also have showing attendant, Maggie, on that section a little bit.
Oh my gosh, and that's a big one too. And it's so small, I almost missed it. Thank you, Edith. All right, yes, showing attended, and I don't know how I forgot because I've already gotten so many questions on it, but showing attended, yes, no, is essentially, is the buyer's agent required to attend showings? Yes or no? Is the buyer's agent required to be present? But that is a big one, so yes, no on that. All right, and I believe that does conclude our showing tab, if I'm not mistaken. So we're good. Let's go pop over to our remarks. And on our remarks tab, you will be pleased to find that the only change on here is under property description. Instead of 750 characters, we now have 1,000. And if I'm not mistaken, you guys, I think that is the only change on our remarks tab. Everything else remains the same. We have more space for property description. Now, WJ did tell us that with the increase on property description, depending on what kind of report you print, the extra characters can push over those PDF files to be more than one page. So keep that in mind. All right, no changes on remarks other than the nice one of more space. We're going to go take a look at our condo information. Now, condo information is going to show us that building stories that we were talking about before. So building stories on condo info, this is in regards to the number of stories in a building. So if I were entering in this property, say there were 10 floors in this building, 10 stories, but the one that I am listing here is on the 3rd floor. This is how we would want to enter it. All right, so building stories is in regards to how many stories in the building, how many floors in the whole building. Okay, all right. Other than that, nothing to note. So we'll pop over and look at our farm and ranch. Farm and ranch does not have really any noticeable changes. It is still a very large and very detailed field for you. I'm sorry, page for you. It's been relocated, or I'm sorry, a few things have been relocated. The barn type used to be towards the top left-hand corner, I believe. So it's been moved around a little bit, reorganized. But as far as we can tell, everything seems to be about the same. Few options added. A lot of these, even if they did not have a name change, they have had a few features added to them. So you will see that as you go throughout. So even if we did not speak on every single one in this webinar today, that doesn't mean that, you know, we're not aware they're not there. There are a lot, too many to go over in this webinar. But go explore, you'll find them. So last thing is on our status tab. On our status tab, instead of incoming, we now have incomplete, but we still have coming soon, active remain the same. It's just our draft or our work in progress is now incomplete. And I don't know if you've noticed, but at the very bottom, next to our validate, we have an option to save as an incomplete. So if you're ever concerned with submitting a property or you're worried that you'll accidentally make it active or coming soon, you can always just go down there and hit that save as an incomplete. You can never go wrong. All right. Now with the residential input being changed, new fields being added, new features being added, updated, whole new search field, I'm sorry, listing fields being added altogether, there have been updates to the residential input forms to show these changes as well. So we do need those residential input forms, of course. Rachel, would you like to show us where to find our new input forms for the now?
Well, hold on before we do that. We've got lots of questions about the input.
Okay, well, let's do questions first, and then Rachel will show us where to find that. What have we got?
Right. Got lots of questions about walkability score. Where do they get the walkability score?
I know that the walkability score is present on some of the public documentation. I know I've seen it on the tax records occasionally. Whenever you go into realist tax, if you use RPR, I know that it's part of the neighborhood information when you go in and pull up a property in RPR. The walkability score is usually assigned after an accumulation of public data based on its location, what's close to it, what's going on, and like WJ was saying earlier, amenity as well as business. So usually it's going to be located on a public report or a report that has access to that public data. Where else can we find it, guys? Realist tax, RPR?
It may be in Remind. I'd have to look and see, but it may be part of the property details there also. And you could probably find other websites on the internet that have it.
Oh yeah, probably so. And I think you're right. I think Remind does have it part of the property report as well. I'd forgotten about that one. What else?
Can you explain what dual and variable is?
So yes, we can. On the financial tab, the question is, oh, it's not financial anymore. It is agent. See guys, we're still trying to get used to it as well. There's a few things that the muscle memory for doing certain searches is just doesn't work anymore. But so whereas for dual fee for us, it is variable fee for us is dual fee for Louisiana, is how that was explained. Is in the Northwest Louisiana board, they use something called a dual fee. And because they were added to our, not our association, but they were added to our Netris pool, and they now use our data MLS as well, there have been a few things added to mirror what they need. So dual is for Louisiana and variable fee is for us, but it's essentially the same use. They just call it something different in their contracts.
So a variable fee is disclosing the listing agent's agreement with the seller. If their fee does not change, if the property sells, then it's not variable. But if it changes based on the circumstance of the selling, like the seller brought the buyer called on a sign, there was no other agent involved, then they get their fee from the seller changes. That is a variable fee. One of the fields had said something about third-party approval. Would that have been financing, maybe?
No, I think that would have been, I thought that would have been on remarks.
They were asking what the third-party approval is.
I thought it was in the syndication. Oh, maybe not. Do you remember what tab it was? Someone said
do not.
financial?
I do not.
Oh, in proposed financing. So on financial and proposed financing.
Mm-hmm. That's where I thought it might be. Is it in there? Huh. Not sure. Diane, why don't you send us an email to mls@dfwre.com with that. We'll get you an answer. And let's see if there were any other common things. Oh, there was one. How can I tell if a field is required?
That's a good question. Rachel, can you show us?
I sure can. So that is a great question. All of these required or not required fields are going to depend on what status you have picked over here on the status tab. I'm going to go over to status, and you might notice when I have it picked here on incomplete, a bunch of them are white, so they're not required. But if I change it to active, and then let's just say I go back to, let's go back to utilities. If they're yellow like this, that means that they are required. So that means since I picked active, if I want to make this listing active today, I have to fill out something in these yellow fields. If it's a white field like this one, then it's not required, so I don't have to fill it out, but I can if I want to. It's kind of an optional.
There are a couple of exceptions to that rule, such as our garage, even though if you put yes or no, or if you do put yes, the garage spaces and information all becomes required. It does not magically turn yellow. So that is one of the few exceptions. There's one or two others that you'll find when you go through, but they're not any different than it used to be. It's the same as it was. Garage never turned yellow for you when you said, yes, I had a garage. I think the school information's the same. The additional schools don't light up for us. When you select the school district, it still expects you to choose 3, but it does not light up that 3 are required.
Someone did comment that they went into Remind, and it does have the walkability score. And someone else commented walkscore.com. So there's lots of places to find that.
Yeah.
Convenient.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And just to add to those sub fields, HOA is a big one too. So if you say mandatory, it does have sub fields that you're going to need to answer. You're going to need to go ahead and answer. There's a trick to that. Rachel, if you want to go to like financial and then go back to HOA. And there you go. The yellow is mandatory, so if you kind of see that on the HOA, that's just a quick little trick on that one. And somebody did ask, what is validate? So validate is basically checking that work before you actually go active, or if you're going along and you're not sure, like if you did all the fields, validate is like just checking your work, and so you will see some red notifications come in, and you can go back and fill those in.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and show what that looks like. When I click validate, and since I haven't put anything on this listing, it's kind of funny. There's one on everything, but you'll see the tabs that you have something you need to do are going to have that little circle with exclamation point. And then let's say I go to that tab, then it's going to have a little triangle there with exclamation point, and it's telling me, hey, this field is required. You have to fill something in here. And so if I pick something in that field and then I hit validate again, it's going to recheck it, and it's going to take that little exclamation point away because it's going to say, oh, she's filled that in. That one's good. You still have to fill in these guys.
The third-party approval is under seller type. So that's going to be a short sale situation where the lender has to approve the contract, not the homeowner. So if you go to the seller type field.
Let's see, seller type, is that financial? Or is that, where is seller type? They've moved that one on me.
I think it
Property
would.
info.
It's on showings, seller types and showings tab.
Let's
There we
see,
go.
ah, there it is. Seller type. And third party approval right there.
Yeah. Had a few questions about if your seller is a person, do you use the real estate owned? No, you would do the individual. Real estate owned is going to be your what's known as lender, REO. It used to be called lender REO. So if you're looking for foreclosures, those would be foreclosures. Then you have new ones down there, the bankruptcy, the auction, those type of fields. So
And then Rachel, we
asking
did
why.
actually, go ahead, WJ.
I was just saying, someone's asking why you can't see all the questions. I don't think you really want to see all the questions. There are bunches of them, and we're trying to get the common threads here. So if it's a question that we think everyone should see, we can send it to everybody so that you see that question. But there are literally hundreds of questions coming in, guys. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. I actually had an interesting question in regards to the validate and the save as incomplete. And I actually haven't tested it, so I don't know. But the question is, if our listing is marked as active, while it's marked as active, so we can go through and see the required fields and everything, can we still go down to the bottom of the screen and hit save as incomplete while it's still marked as active? Will it let us do it, Rachel?
Yes, it will. So for example, I've got it set to active here. I can come down at any time and I can save it as an incomplete. So I'm going to go ahead and do that just to show you. Oh, it has something required. Oh, you know what? It does require, your incomplete does require one thing here, and that's your agent ID. So I need to go ahead and put mine in. And I can either type in my license number like that, or I could type in my name. So I could do like this, and it's going to do it that way. So either way, now I've got that filled in there. Now I can save as incomplete. And there we go, and it's giving me a little MLS number right there. So there you go. Yes, you can do that.
Awesome, thank you. And then I did have another question. If there was somewhere that they could find a printed list of the changes, or is there a list of changes that they can go and look at for their reference?
On that website I gave you at the beginning on mymetrotext.com, if you go to big matrix changes, there's lots of resources there for you. What does property attached mean?
Okay, I'm going to click on continue editing to go back into that one. And that was property attached. I believe that's on, let's see, is that on the very first one? Yes, it is, property attached. Right there. That one is a yes, no field for property attached. And that is going to be whether that is a single attached home or a single detached home, or if it's an attached. So for example, a townhome where you have 3 or 4 in a row that all share walls, that one is going to be property attached, yes, versus if I just have my one single detached little residential home by itself surrounded by my yard, that one is going to be property attached, no.
And everyone, the big changes link I did put in the chat, so you can copy and save it and paste it for future reference.
Perfect. If you guys want me to, I can pull up our website real quick and show them where that is. I'll go ahead and do that. I'll go to My Metro Text, and here's our website. There it goes. And then I believe it's on our home page. Here we go. Matrix MLS support. You can click on that. And here is our changes to Matrix MLS little web page here. You'll see it's that one right up here, big Matrix changes. And here we've got a whole page with all kinds of information on it. We've got some videos that our lovely instructor team has done. We have latest status updates. So if there's anything that's kind of going a little wonky or needs to be fixed, you can view those there. Changes to listing input and searches. So that's what we're talking about today. What is Reso? That's what WJ was talking about at the beginning of our class. And then down at the very bottom is changes to MLS fields. And you'll see right here there's a list. So I can click on that to expand it. And here is a list of every single change, what it was, and what it is in the new system. Okay, so that is all the changes here. You can see the new fields as well. And that is all going to be on our website under Big Matrix Changes. It looks like this.
You want to jump back into the listing? We had several questions about, can you explain what showing attended yes, no means?
Yes, I saw those questions as well. We had several on a showing attended yes, no. So I did ask Netris on this to verify before today's webinar. And so showing attended is yes, no, is referring to the buyer's agent. It is referring to the buyer's agent, and it's saying, is the buyer's agent required to attend showings, yes or no? So whenever potential buyers go to look at the property, are you requiring the buyer to have their agent with them? All right, so that's a yes, no. Does the buyer's agent need to be there? Hopefully that clears it up for us. And then I did see a couple of questions in regards to the listing input forms. Are the listing input forms going to reflect the changes? So yes, Rachel's going to show us those listing input forms here in just a few minutes. So those will be reflecting the same changes we see on this input form. And that's all I have for right now. Do you guys see anything else we need to go over real quick? Oh, I do see a question about our video and audio field. So WJ, do you want to explain for us the consent for visitors to record and the notice surveillance devices present? They want
Right,
that explained, yeah.
So the seller has to disclose whether they're recording audio or video in the home. Guys, there's so many devices out there now. I would just assume you're being recorded when you're showing a house. The Ring doorbells and everything. So if I walk up and there's a Ring doorbell at the front door, I'm probably going to turn around to the buyer and say, hey, let's don't talk a whole lot inside, okay? And then they'll give permission for the buyer or the agent that's touring the home to take pictures or video or not on that. So be sure and honor that. If they say none, that they don't want you to do it, then respect that. How long does a listing stay in incomplete? It's the same as incoming. It will stay there a maximum of 30 days. But if you edit it, you push that 30 days further into the future. So as long as you keep working on it, then it will never expire.
With that, we had some other questions on incomplete. So as you're working and you want to save your work in progress, you can hit save as incomplete in any of the tabs. If you're ready to leave, stop working for it, on it for a little bit. But also, if you go to the status bar, highlight incomplete and submit property, it does the same. It's just a save as incomplete. It's just a convenient button that you have throughout, just in case you want to just click save, you don't want to do the extra step, but you can still do it the other way it will save it the same. Just make sure that you are highlighting incomplete and submit listing if you prefer doing it that way.
Thank you, Edith. And then I have seen a few questions, guys, in regards to the individual features. So like I said, we didn't go in and touch on every single feature in the input. And there's a few of them that we haven't been able to ask Netris about. We've been trying to adjust to the big changes and make sure all the big things and functions that you need are working for you. So a few of those features we've not been able to ask about. So if you have questions about those individual features, I do see one about what does real estate owned mean? WJ might be able to answer that for us, but I've seen a few others. Send those to us, that email address that Rachel showed us at the beginning of class, and we'll put it up at the end as well, so you'll have it again. But those little things, individual labels, what do they represent? What should we use them for? Send them to us, and that way we'll be learning those with you. That way we'll send them to Netris, we'll get our answers, and then we can get back to you on how those should be used, what they represent, and when to implement them. Okay, and then with that, I do have a question on, does the clock start in incomplete status as far as the DOM goes? With the days on market, the incomplete has not changed. The only thing that changed is its name. Instead of calling it incoming, it is now incomplete. It'll still sit in the MLS system for 30 days untouched, so you have to keep touching on it. Otherwise, the system will think it's a forgotten listing. It will still purge after 30 days of not being touched, like it never existed. It does not count days on market. Now, with that being said, you still have to watch your list date. That hasn't changed. If you enter in an incomplete listing for today with today's list date, you don't make it coming soon or active for a week or 2 weeks with today's list date, that will count days on market. All right, so if you're creating an incomplete, watch your list date. Let it be the last thing that you enter. But incomplete as a static rule does not accumulate days on market. Same with coming soon. All right, so you don't have to worry about that.
Rachel, you want to go ahead and show us where the data input sheets are? That'll give us a few minutes to look through the questions, and then we can take more questions after.
Sure. Yes. So kind of what Maggie was saying earlier is with all of these new fields that they've added, things like that, we want to make sure that those data input sheets are updated. If you're not sure what a data input sheet is, it's basically all of these little fields all listed out on one document for you. And so that way you can take that with you whenever you go to see that house, you know, with your sellers, you fill it all out, and then you have all the information ready whenever you come to input that listing. So where do we find those? Where do we find the new ones that are updated with all the new information? You can find those on Netris's website. So I'm going to go there. And their website right here is netris.net. So that is NTREIS.net, netris.net. Of course, they've got the MLS login button up there if you ever need to log in this way. But right here under resources, right there is forms and documents. And that is where you are going to find those data input sheets. So I'm going to go there. Again, that was resources and then forms and documents. And your data input sheets are going to be right here at the top. It says input forms, and it's going to have every single property type. So we have residential, residential lease, residential income. Remember, that's the new name for our multifamily. We've got land. Land is the new name for lots and acreage. And then, of course, we've got our commercials separated out into the two. So we have commercial sale and we have commercial lease in here as well. And if I click on one, just to kind of show you guys what they look like, I'm going to click on the residential one. And you know what? I'll go ahead and make it a little bit bigger. I don't know about you guys, but I'm like blind as a bat without my glasses on. This is what that residential data input sheet looks like. So this one kind of is like your property information tab right there. It has every single little field here. It's got your housing type. It's got property attached, yes, no. It has your list price, your list date, all of that kind of stuff is here for you. So you can take this with you, go meet with your sellers, fill all of this out, and then you can come back to the MLS system and you have all of the answers that Matrix is going to ask you questions for. And then one other thing here, you might see that some of these guys have that little star or that little asterisk next to it. that is letting you know that that one's a required field. So if you're wanting to make an active listing, you're going to have a list price. You're going to have a list date, an expiration date, a year built, so on and so forth. So that is where you can find those residential data input sheets. That's on Netrus's website. And because I know that we'll have some questions on it, these are also, usually they are in zip forms and Instanet. Those are our transaction management tools that have all your forms and everything. As of this morning, I don't think they're in there yet, but we have heard from Netrus that they are working to get those put in there. Hopefully this week. I think they were supposed to get them done today, but we'll see. You know, it's a lot of information to update and put in there. But these will be in zip forms and they will be in Instanet for you as well. So just kind of keep an eye out for those. They should be updated really soon.
All right. Could you pull up a agent pool report, please?
Sure can. Go back to Matrix and just pull up any listing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
Okay, I'm just gonna go to listing. Okay, here's an agent.
So multiple questions about the levels aren't on here. They actually are. If you scroll down below the picture, to keep going. It's right there across from single detached, levels 1. So they moved it down. It's not called stories anymore. It's called levels. So they are still there.
And they're also on each individual room. So you can see on this one, they've entered each room here and it has the little slash and then the level. So you can see that's a master bedroom on the first floor. There's another bedroom on level number 1, utilities on level 1. They're there as well, but also right there.
Sorry, reading questions, guys. Trying to get to them as quick as we can.
We're trying to keep up with you guys.
Anybody else have other questions? Rachel, you want to go over some of the, on the agent full report here, why don't we talk to that a little bit? If you'll notice, they took the address away, the great big address there, just above the top. Well, is it back now?
Oh, they've got it right up here.
It went away last week. Maybe they reduced the font size. They're listening to your feedback, guys, about the print of this report. The reason the icons moved above the picture to the top there was to get rid of that white space. That when those were there and it printed, it would just be white space there. So they moved it up above the photo so that they just start printing after that. And then last week, that address that she has highlighted there went away for a little bit. I think they were playing to see, do we really need that? Do we want that there or not? So give us your feedback. We are feeding that feedback into Netrus, and they're making adjustments to try to meet your needs.
Exactly. That's a really great point, WJ. They are kind of playing around with this agent full report. And it also has to do with printing, because we know a lot of you guys do email things out, print things out. And so as we kind of change around the font size of things or how things are oriented on that agent full report, it kind of changes how the printout looks. So we are trying to keep it all on one page, but we're also trying to let you guys put as much information as possible on a listing. So Netrus is working with designers on that one to get this looking the best that it can, and also kind of keep it down and to as small of a printing page as possible, while also giving you guys as much information about the listing as possible. So, you know, they're trying to do the best to balance that.
Are the taxes still on the full report?
Let's see. That would be. Is it down at the bottom? Seller type. Don't see them down there.
It used to be right in there.
Yeah, they used to be up here, right? Unexempt taxes.
Kathy, we will research that. I hadn't noticed it wasn't there. It should be the unexempt taxes field. I don't see it hiding anywhere. It looks like it should go right in there across from will subdivide. There's a blank spot.
Yeah.
We'll send that feedback in. That should be on that form.
Okay. I've also gotten a question about doing residential lease. So whenever you're searching or inputting a listing for residential lease, you guys, it's still residential lease. Rachel, I don't know if you would click on that search drop down for us. There you go. So the way that that search bar works, it may not look exactly how Rachel's looks here. Your search drop down, or what we're looking at right here, is going to go based off of you as the agent. What searches are you running, and whatever you run the most, if it's a most recent or most frequently used, it's going to start plugging them on to this quick drop down for you. So this will change and update with your usage, but there is residential lease as one of the categories still, and it's the same for on the input form. You would just choose residential lease to access that. So no changes there.
I do have another one here. All the white space to the right of the form, is this being addressed? Yes, they have heard your feedback that you don't like all the white space there. You want to use your monitor for what it's made for. They're trying to get the hard things fixed first, and then they're going to go back and work on the cosmetic things, guys. So they are aware that you don't like that, and they are going to address it in the future. But right now, they're just trying to get everything working the way it should, and then they'll go back and do the cosmetic things.
Yes, exactly. And my page even, I think, is zoomed in a lot. I think if I zoom out to a regular page, you guys can see there's a lot more white space over there. But I do like to get it zoomed in whenever we're showing you guys things so you can see it. But yeah, they're working on that one.
Somebody says the price per acre is incorrect.
Price per acre. Well, let's see. So that one would be your list price divided by your acreage. So that would be.
Scroll down. How many acres of this one?
Our acres is 0.14. 0.140. Yep, yeah, I get the 2,556,428.57. That's what I get. So the way they get that is by taking your list price right there and just dividing it by whatever you put in your acreage field. And it's just one of those automatic calculations is where they get that one.
We're getting some questions on the input forms and where to find them. I put the link on the chat, so if you want to, for those of you who are looking into that, just grab it, copy it, and save it.
And then I've seen a couple of questions come through in regards to our defaults. And Rachel, you might show us how to save a default again. I've gotten one or two on the criteria field, and then I've just got my second one on like the results page. Some of our old defaults, I know mine did at least, some of our old defaults that we saved for our one-liners, if we added columns or rearranged it, or on our criteria page, it did revert back with the change to the default. So if you're not seeing that city column, for example, Rachel, would you want to show us real quick? It hasn't changed any. You might have to reset it up or go find it again, but you can still, from this agent single line, click on the column header at the top and insert whichever column you're looking for. So I've seen a request for city, and then I've also seen a request for the price per square foot. So again, a couple of the names have changed. City obviously has not. What else would you name a city, right? But they're still in there. You know, you can just add them back. And if you want to see them like that for always and eternity, it's just using that gear under the results page. If you have a gear, regardless of what page you're on, if you're changing and updating your criteria page or here on your results menu, just click on that little gear and it will give you that set current display. Okay. And then it'll
And
always
just
be there for you. Go ahead.
And just
Edith.
one quick change that we're getting a lot of questions on that one in some of our classes is the zip code. A lot of you use that. That, if you add it, it's going to be identified as postal code. So if you're looking for that on this particular agent single line view, look for postal code, and that will be the zip code.
Let me go ahead and add it. It'll be postal code, just like that. They've got postal code, which would be your kind of regular, 76034 is one that I know. Or they have the +4, so it would be 76034 plus the last 4, the full one there. But when I apply it, there you go.
I have a couple people asking where they find their MLS agent ID. So that's going to be your license number, or it should be your license number. There are some circumstances where it's not your license number, but about 85 to 90%, it should be your license number starting with that 0. So whatever you call us in and we say, hey, what's your license number? And we look you up, that's your login ID. If not, shoot us an email or call us and we will assist you with that.
You can always do a roster member search. I'll show you that. So like, for example, if I search my first name, Rachel, my last name is Hinson, it only finds one, I'm the one and only, and then I go to results. Okay, I have a full admin view because I'm fancy and special and I work in the MLS department, but this is what you're gonna see. And there's my name, and then it has agent ID right here. So that's how that roster search works as well. You can see my office, my ID, all that information.
Rachel, you want to show us a little bit about the mapping tools that we have?
Yeah, sure thing. So that's a question that we get quite a bit. If we're going to a residential search here and we're wanting to maybe narrow down our search by a geographical manner. So instead of using, your areas, your zip code, something else like that, what I can always do is I can go here and let's say I want to see my active and my coming soons. Maybe I just want to see Texas, so I'm going to exit out Louisiana there. Maybe I want to put in my bedrooms as, let's say 3+, and I want to do 2+ baths. We're just doing a regular search here. And we want to look 300 to 500, just a random amount there. Then I can go over to my map tab, and my map tab is right up here. It's going to be in between criteria and results there. It's going to be in the middle. It'll be anytime you do a search, you'll see that map tab. And here is our map. So this is going to be, it's going to work with my criteria. So I put in, I only want to see active and coming soon. I only want to see 3 beds or more, so on and so forth. This is going to be all the listings that match that. And this is going to be all of them in Texas. So that's a lot. So I can use my map to kind of narrow things down. So for example, if maybe I am wanting to look in, maybe I just want to, I'm going to zoom in here. Maybe I want to see just everything that's above, 183 here. I can go up to the top and I have a bunch of tools that can help me do that. So I could draw a radius, which would be drawing a circle on the map. I could draw a rectangle. Of course, that's going to be a rectangle. I can draw a polygon. That is going to be a little bit more customizable. Or I can do freehand. That one's just going to be like I've got a pen in my hand and I'm drawing on that map. So you have a bunch of tools that you can use to, maybe I just want to see that little area. You'll see my map updates. and I'm just going to see my active or my coming soon listings in that area. Okay, so all of your map tools are going to be up top, and those are going to work with whatever you put in your criteria.
So someone was asking about documents on listings, that they're seeing a listing that shows it has documents, but when they click the link, there's nothing to view. What has happened there is the listing agent has marked those as private documents on that listing. So when you click on it, you can't see them. They would have to be marked as agent view for you to be able to see them. So you may want to contact that agent. I did look at it, and you are correct. They're not viewable.
Exactly, that would be, here's a listing document, and then that little star over here that we can see, that would be whether or not it's a private or a public document. And it would be right here on your listing. It'll be up above your photos, right next to that little alarm clock.
Rachel, I
Well,
don't know. I was going to
go
say, I
ahead.
don't know if we have time or not, but I've gotten a couple of questions about seeing the difference between levels and stories. I know that we've shown it in the input, and we've also shown it on the agent full, but I've had a couple come in actually about what a search will look like, because both of them are on the residential search page, the building story and the levels. And so someone wanted to know what the searches look like, or what the difference is on a search. Would you want to show us that, Rachel?
Yeah, I can do that.
So we can get a visualization.
Sure thing. So let's see here. We have got our residential search here. And on our search page right here, we've got total stories in the building here, and we also have levels. Again, just one more time, that distinction is levels is going to be inside of that property. So if I pick 2 levels, that would be a 2-story home, or it would be a condo that has 2 stories, an apartment that has 2 stories, something like that. It's all inside of what you're getting of that property. The difference there, total stories, is going to be in the building altogether. So for example, if I have a condo, and in that condo building, we have maybe 40 stories total, then that would be 40 stories total, and maybe I'm on, story number 12 or story number 10. That's where my condo lives. That's kind of the distinction there. For a search, Maggie, what do you think would be the best way to show that? You think doing maybe a condo search?
Well, actually, what I saw and the mistake that I was worried about, especially since we started getting questions on it, I had one come up last week. An agent was trying to run a search in Colleyville, actually. I don't know if you wanted to try and recreate it, but she ran a search in Colleyville for active and coming soons. And I mean, in theory, it made sense when she chose single family residence. And then she chose 2 for our levels over here on the right. But then she also put 2 in our total building, or total stories in building. So we have 18 matches before Rachel plugs it in. What about a 2+, Rachel? Does that help us any? It does not. So that was the issue that I saw coming up, is getting those switched, or thinking that they represent about the same thing. Is even though in my mind I have a 2-story house, I choose single family residence and I do levels 2, that's great. But if I do 2 for total stories in building, it zeroes out my matches. And I've run this search several different times. It does not matter. If I'm choosing single family residential, my total stories in building will zero out my matches. So like you said, Rachel, is a better search for this is, instead of single family residence, I would probably want to choose only use stories for my condominium or my townhouse.
The reason for the single family residence one is they don't fill out the condo tab when they're doing their single family, but they do for the condos. So that field is really just related to condominiums.
Right.
Exactly.
So yeah, so if you're not using, or if you're not searching for condominiums, don't use the total stories in building, is essentially what we're saying there. Sometimes it's okay to double up, but in this case, not so much. So there we go. Rachel, we might need to show inserting a column just one more time if you don't mind. I know we showed it, but I've seen 3 or 4 requests for it. It really is still the same, you guys, is finding that 4-pointed arrow at the top of any one of those column headers. See how her mouse changed to a 4-pointed arrow? Once you see that 4-pointed arrow, you're going to click. It's going to open up this little box for you. This is essentially your actions box, remove, add. We're going to do the insert column. And then from there, I've still seen a lot of requests for cities. It's just typing in the city. And then I've also seen the request still for the current price per square foot. That hasn't changed, has it, Rachel? Does it have a name change?
Let's see if that one is current use. Maybe it's a $sign. Here we go.
Okay, so they did change the way that it looks. So guys, you are correct. With the price per square foot, did have a little bit of a change, not necessarily a name change, just the way that it's represented. So what you're seeing on Rachel's screen right now is the new price per square foot. They've shortened it for us. I know that's one that I always went in and shortened it in my classes because it had a very long name.
Also, the ratio fields that a lot of people use for investors. If you want to do that again, Rachel. The ratio fields, the name has changed. Instead of typing ratio, go ahead and type it and show that they're not there. Oh, it's a part of expiration.
Expiration, but yeah.
Okay. But the ratio fields aren't there. Type in CLS. They've shortened the name of the field. So you got closed price, lot square footage, closed price per acre. All of those ratios that we used to have, the name has changed there. So they are still there. You just have to know how to find them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so this one would be your closed price by square footage or closed price per acres. That one is there as well.
All right, I don't think we've talked about the bathroom. Oh, I'm sorry, go right ahead.
Yeah, we have a question. It says, is there any changes to the Cdom or the DOM? No, there was no changes. There was changes in the terminology and how that is identified, like incomplete used to be incoming, closed, sold or leased is closed, and temporarily off the market is now hold. But no, the answer to that is the Cdom and the DOMs have stayed the same.
I don't think we've talked about the bathrooms and how that has changed. Do you want to speak to that, Rachel?
Mm-hmm. Sure thing. And your CDOM and DOM will be down here. Yeah. So our bathrooms will be, here we go, right here. So we now have a new field here, which is total bathrooms, or you see it here, TOT, bath, right there. That is going to be the total number of bathrooms in that property. So for example, on this one, our total bathrooms is 4. We have 4 bathrooms in the whole shebang. However, our full baths is 3. So that's going to be, you got your sink, your toilet, your bathtub, shower. That's going to be your full bath. However, it also has 1 half bath. Okay, so that 1 half bath usually is just a sink and a toilet there. So your total bathrooms is going to be 4. Before, we didn't have total bathrooms in this way. In our old system, instead of having 4, we would have 3.1 for your bathrooms. So they've just changed that to your total bathroom is going to be everything. And then right down below it is going to be broken out by how many full baths and then how many half baths.
I have a couple of thank yous for that one, Rachel. And then I did have a question come through about, is there a difference between closing price / square foot and closing price / building?
Let's see, I believe that one was on our single line
I think so.
because we added, we go in here, type in my CLS here. So we have got our, I believe what they're talking about here, there is close price / building square foot, but then there's also close price / square foot here as well. You know, I'm not for sure on that one. Do you guys know the difference between those two?
Which one?
We've got close price by square footage, and then we also have close price by building square footage.
Probably the difference in the heated and cooled.
That's
So
what I would,
the square footage would more than likely be the living area, but then the building would include the garage, and the other would be my first guess at it. I'd have to look and see. What is the difference in a mobile and manufactured home? So a mobile home is usually brought into the site on wheels. It's pulled like a trailer and then erected on the site. Manufactured homes are built somewhere else and taken apart, taken to the site, and put back together. So it doesn't come, it comes in on a trailer, but it's not already built. It gets remanufactured or reset up on the site.
perfect. That is a
So
really
is
good
there,
distinction.
yeah, is there a way to search for properties with the property description? You want to show them how to do that?
Yeah, you can definitely still do that. The way that you're going to do that is you'll go to your search, residential detailed or residential quick, you know, whichever one you use. And if you want to search by the property description, you're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. And see, I've already got mine added here, but I'll show you how to add it. Right down here, it has additional fields, add or remove. Or if you don't have any in there, it'll just say add. And you'll click on add. And then what this page does here is I have all of the possible available fields. So this would be anything on that input screen that we just looked at earlier. Anything I could possibly add here. And then we also have my selected fields. So which ones of those have I picked out? So if I want property description, I can use this little search field down here at the bottom. Otherwise, it's a super long list. I have to search through it. But then I can just find property description. I'll click on add here to add it to my selected fields. It'll show up just like that. And then when I go back, it's going to take me right back to my search page. And I can scroll down to the bottom. So I'm going to scroll down until I see my additional fields here. And there is my property description right there. So this would be a box that I can type in. So if I'm wanting to search the property description for some kind of specific phrase, I can do that. Maybe I want to type in there, maybe invest. If I want to look for investment properties, I can type in invest, see if I can find some of those. I could type in anything that I know that realtors use to describe their properties. Maybe like cul-de-sac is one of the things that I could type in there. I could type in great view of the lake. I could type in, you know, if I'm looking for properties downtown, I could type downtown in there. So all kinds of different things. Just kind of use your realtor knowledge with that one. How do you know as realtors they would describe that property? And that's what you'd be searching there. Great question.
And then I did have another question, actually came up a couple times, Rachel, about the statuses. So with the name changes on a couple of their statuses, hold, closed, what will that look like on a hot sheet? Does that have the abbreviations changed for those?
Oh, that is a really good question. Yeah, so what they're talking about there is, your hold and your close. Those are two that change the name. So if I go over to my hot sheets, which is one of these widgets on my home screen here, mine is stuck all the way down here at the bottom. So here is a couple of hot sheets I have. I'm just going to do, say, the last 3 days. I'm going to click on my South Lake one. So here is our hot sheet. And then what we're talking about here is our change. So we have the type of change and then the change type here. So for example, we can see closed is now CLS. And then we see that abbreviation over here. So this one was pending and is now closed. Okay. So yes, they are going to change just a little bit, but I think they're pretty easy to tell. For example, closed is CLS. Hold, I believe, is just an H because that's the only one that has an H in it like that. So yeah, that's what they look like on hot sheet. They do change just a little bit.
I think one of the big changes on that one is canceled. You may see it as CAN and K. So that's a big one. And also expired is going to be the X. So cancel, K, or CAN.
Yeah, let me see if I can find one with that. Let me do last 7 days and see if Bedford has anything. Bedford usually has a few. Yes, here's one. So canceled would be CAN for canceled, and then we see a K right there. So there's an example of the canceled.
There's one on here that's really specific, but I'm not sure what she's asking. It's on hot sheets, can you click on top of garages so you can see the 3 cars at the top?
Yes.
I'm not sure if there's a question. Yeah.
They're talking about up here, right here would be your garage / CP, so carport, and then / TCP, which is total covered parking. Ordinarily, you can click on fields to sort them, just like this one. And I see what you're saying. So I can sort my baths, but it's not letting me sort this one. Let me see if I can add in just garages, maybe. Let's give it a try. Let's see.
About garage spaces, maybe, Rachel?
Garage spaces. Let's try that. Okay, we can add garage spaces, and I can sort that one. So do that one. Add in garage spaces, and you can sort that one with your 3-car garages up to the top.
There's been a question about the portals, and I'm assuming that they're talking about the one-home portals. But I think it's a fair question to ask, with all the changes that we've seen in Matrix, Rachel, on our input side and our criteria side and everything, how has that affected the one-home portals for our clients?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. You're not going to see a whole lot of change there at all with the one-home portals. Those stay exactly the same. So how you set your clients up on portals, how you set them up for auto emails is going to be exactly the same. And it's going to look exactly the same for them. How they view that email, how they access it, how they go into one home is going to be exactly the same. I don't believe there's been any changes in there. Maggie, do you know of any changes?
There's been a couple as far as just the field names have been updated to coincide with what we see on the listing input form. But outside of a couple of the field names, you shouldn't see any big changes. No, it should just show what's on the listing. So if it's available on the listing, of course, it'll show in one home.
Exactly.
Can you do a land search and show how to do a range of acreages?
Sure thing. So here is my land search. I just did search, clicked on land here, and we are looking for a range of acreages. Okay, let's see here. So we've got a couple ways that we could do that here. We have got lot size acreage right here. So we can do it that way. So if I'm looking for a property that is between 5 and 10 acres, well, it shows less than 10 acres. So that would be 5 to 9.99 or whatever it would be. You could do it that way. I can also hold down that control button and I can search multiple. So if I'm okay with anything from 1 acre all the way up to 10, I could search all 3 of those. That's one way we can do that. We also have exact land size right here. And we have a little drop down for the type that is. So if we're looking for acres, we're going to do our AC in that little drop down. And then we just type in our range here. So if I'm looking for, maybe I want to see 10 to 15 acres. Ooh, it brought me down to 0. Let me see if there's anything. I thought that would work. Let's see. Maybe if I do my close, see if there's any that are off market. Well, we've got some off market ones. Let me try 10 plus. Let's see if that works.
We have very low inventory right now.
We do. That's one thing. I was like, it might not be the search page. It might be that there's just not a lot of land like that right now. Okay, if we do the plus sign, we do come up with 3. So it'll work just like that. I'm looking for maybe 3+ acres. I could do it that way. Maybe if I do 3 to 15, let's give that a go and see. Okay, that one did give me some, so you can still do it like that.
Yeah, you still have your lot size and acreage selected.
You know what
down
I
there,
do?
so unselect those and see if that helps.
And that just kind of gives us a great example, Rachel. We all tend to forget, right? But just keep in mind, whatever you're putting on the criteria, one may zero out the other. So just be mindful of that one. Now you should see more, I think.
Look at that. Yep, I forgot to, I had my lot size / acreage filled in. So I took those out, put in my 10 to 15 acres, and wouldn't you know it, there we go. Now we're seeing some results. So yes, you can do a range just like that. Just make sure that you have your acreage select here, or you could search by square footage if that's the way you're doing it as well.
And we did have someone ask, how did you select multiple down there? Rachel, if you would want to share your secret with us.
Sure thing. Yeah, for that one, so the example I gave, if I was looking for anything from 1 all the way up to 10, the way I did that is I hold down the control key on my keyboard, should be kind of like the bottom left control key there. You hold that one down, and then while you're holding that down, you click, and that will allow you to select multiple. Or it kind of works the opposite way. If I hold down my control key and I click on one that's already selected, it will deselect it. So you can kind of use that both ways. That's the control key.
Unless you're on a Mac or an Apple, then it's the command key.
Then it is the command key if you're on a Mac or an Apple product, yes.
Yes, yes. And then I had a question just come through you guys, and I'm surprised we haven't gotten more questions on this. With the changeover, how do the save searches and auto emails work? Are they automatically updated, or do they need to be refreshed?
Oh, that is a really great question. Yeah, I can pull that up. So for that one, I'm going to go to my matrix and my save searches here. You'll see that I have a few in here. So these were all populated over from the previous version of Matrix. They were all pulled over here. And the same thing is going to go for my auto emails too. Here's all my auto emails that I have here. And what I've got there is that the only thing you're going to see is if you have the areas involved in those. So for example, I believe I have a save search which has area 25 involved in there. And then you'll see it says it right there. MLS area major no longer in use. So if you had a previous search that was using an MLS area and you need to go in there and you need to go take out that, that MLS area as part of your search criteria, what's going to happen is basically your search is just not going to come up with any search results because we don't have the areas anymore. So for that one, go into your save searches, go into your auto emails. It's going to be the same thing. You just click on the name of it and they'll expand out a little menu for you. And then go into your criteria right there. And then you can change that search criteria. Okay. So I believe if it has one, no, this one I think I've already edited, but it should have a little checkbox there at the very bottom. You can uncheck for the MLS area, and then you can just put in some other search criteria. So you could do multiple cities, you could use your zip codes. For this one, I replaced it with a map area. So you've got a few options on how you can edit that. You can just click on map search there.
So if they had searches based on areas, those searches will not be working, right?
That is correct, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then if you have not had area as part of your criteria in your searches, auto email or save searches, they should not be affected. They should have merged over into the new build without any issue and should be running smoothly. So no need to refresh those, just the ones with areas.
Yes.
Okay.
So we had a question earlier. When is the Metrotex building going to be finished and when will we be moving in? You want to go to our website and see if they have one of the drone flyovers on it? So we're still being told July, August of this year that our building will be finished. We are really excited about it. If you watch our website occasionally, they will have a drone flyover showing progress on it. I actually drove by it a week or so ago, and it looks like the exterior is almost finished, and they're working hard on the interior. So thanks for asking, and I'm sure we'll have an open house once we're in it.
Let me see if I can find it. I know they have a page on our website. Yes, so if you go to that little, it's a little magnifying glass up there in the top right, and you type in HQ for headquarters, it will pop up this page, and the very top one here is Metrotex's new HQ, February 2022 progress update. And right here, they have a little YouTube video that you can watch, and that would be the most recent update for our building, where it's at, what it's looking like. And there we go.
All right, guys, the questions have slowed down. We just got a couple more minutes here. If you have any final questions, please go ahead and put those in. Otherwise, thanks for attending. I hope this was beneficial to you and got you some information you can use. So we're going to hang around just a few more minutes for the last minute questions, and everyone have a great day.
While we're waiting for any last minute questions, I did have someone repost from earlier. We'd like to see the HOA trick again, Rachel.
You got it. You got it. What they're talking about there is under listing input. And what I'm going to do, just to show you, something else, another way to do this, if I click on this little drop-down menu here for select a listing, this is all of my practice listings here. I'm going to go into that one. To go back and edit it, you just click that top one here that says residential. And they're asking about HOA. So I'll go to HOA. You'll see right now this is all white, so it's not showing me any of those mandatory fields. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to active status here. Then I'm going to go back to HOA. And you'll see here just the top one is required. So it wants to know, is there an HOA here? Is there a mandatory one? Is there a voluntary one? So I'm going to click that this one does have a mandatory HOA. And then Edith showed us, what a genius. She showed us if we go to another tab, so if I just click on financial, and then I go back to HOA, now all of these fields are yellow because I put that it has a mandatory HOA. I need to fill out all that HOA information, right? So that's a little trick there. Select that it's mandatory, go to a different tab, and then come back.
While we're in here, we had a specific situation somebody wanted clarification before. So when you go to Condo Info tab, you have the building stories and the floor location. Somebody was asking about what if it's on the ground floor, what if there's two levels on there. So for instance, that example that was given before, if the building has 10 stories, you will put 10. The floor location will be what floor your property is on. So 3, and let's say that, let's go to rooms now, and let's say that this condo has only 1 level. And so that is where you're going to put a level 1 on there, on the yellow one. There you go. And so if it's on level 2, then you will put 2 levels on there. Not level 2. If there's 2 levels to the property, then you will put 2, and so on. So that hopefully that helped for those of you who had that question. If it's the property and there is just a single detached, you're not going to go to condo. You're just going to answer the levels question here on the rooms tab.
Perfect. And while they're looking through the rest of our questions, we did also talk to a representative from Netris about these changes. And one thing that they really wanted to communicate to everyone is that, you know, at its face value, it's still Matrix. The functionality, for the most part, is the same. They just focus on adding things so that they can get in line with those Reso data dictionary standards that are required by NAR. They want to, you know, make sure that they're up to date with that. And that helps out new agents. So as new agents join in, they don't have to adapt to a bunch of custom fields that are only in our area. Now, with this Reso data dictionary, we're all speaking the same language. You know, we all speak in the terms of bubble baths now, instead of the 3.1 or 4.1. So that's kind of one thing they wanted to stress, is that it's still Matrix and still has some of the same functionality there.
There's a couple of things. Could we see if we could locate real quick, Rachel, on a search page?
Okay.
Can we find the, I believe it was the title company. Let me pull it back up just a second. Title company information is what we were looking for.
And is that on a listing?
On a criteria of being able to search by it. I have an agent who says they like to do a title company information search to see what's out there based on title company, and that they're not seeing it as an available search anymore. I didn't know if you wanted to check that real quick. And then right after that, on a listing, I wanted to show, we had a couple of questions come in from brokers asking about how that information displays on a full. So we can look at that real quick after.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, so for that one, I went down to my additional fields again and I clicked on add. And when I type in title, these are the options that we've got here. We have title company preferred, title company phone, title company location, and title company closing. So these bottom 3 here, title company location, phone, and preferred, that is going to be on your listing input. If you have a preferred title company that you guys, your brokerage likes to work with, then you can denote that there. So that would be one way that you could search for that. And then title company closing, that would be whenever you go to close out a listing, it's officially sold, it's officially, you know, funded, and everybody's happy with their checks. Then you can enter the title company there in the closing information. So that would be how you can, you know, look for that one.
Thank you. And then on a agent full display, can we look and see where does that title company information pop up, and then also how the broker information. So if you guys remember, when we entered in the listing originally, the only thing it asked for was the supervisor MLS ID. So if there's not a supervisor for your office, then it would be your broker's license. So brokers, those of you who've been sending me the questions, it will be your license that will go into the supervisor MLS ID. And even though it just plugs in with your license number, it still pulls in when you click on the open door brokerage information. It's going to list you as the broker with all of your contact information, whatever's available in the MLS. So on the listing side, as far as the broker's information goes, on the listing side, it just asks for licensed agents or supervisors. It'll still pull in regardless of how it's entered on the list side. When you come to the listing view and click on whatever the list office name is, your contact information will always be there. Now, if you want to show up as the supervisor as well, then it would be your license number that you would want to plug in as a supervisor. And then where Rachel's indicating right there, it'll show up like so. So with just name, license number, and phone number. All right, so that does show a little bit differently than before. It's entered in a little bit differently, and then it does also show a little bit differently. And as Rachel showed us just a second ago, our preferred title company information is just underneath that. So thank you so much, Rachel. All right, what do we think, guys?
Let's see, you guys have any other questions that we can get to? I know that we are a little bit over our time here. I've got 12:07 on my watch. So if any of our attendees today, if you guys need to gotta run, you have something else that you need to get to, y'all are definitely welcome to head out. We did record today's session, and we'll make sure to get that to our amazing marketing and communications team so they can post that on our website, on our social media. We will try and get that out everywhere so you guys can rewatch this if you'd like to. Yeah, if you need to head out, you are definitely welcome to, and we hope you have a wonderful day today. But I think we will stay on for just a couple more minutes here to answer any last minute questions. We just want to make sure that we get you guys all the answers that we can.
Rachel, why don't you go ahead and pull the department email back up and have that on the screen. So guys, if we didn't answer your question today, please go ahead and send an email to that email address there, mls@dfwre. We work those diligently, as we all know, looking at all the emails during the launch here. So the launch of Matrix has gone really well. We are very pleased with all the vendors. They're working hard to get everything lined out. So what do y'all think? Think it went well? We survived, didn't we?
We did. We did survive.
And things are working pretty well. So thank you guys for attending today. And if we can help you, there's our email address. The MLS department telephone number is 214-540-2755. And we are here to help you if we can help you in any way.
Thanks for joining us today, guys. Hopefully you found this useful. Like they said, this is being recorded and we'll get it out to you guys for review. So if you missed anything, you'll be able to go back and review it. If there were any questions, I know that there were several that came through that were very specific to a situation with you guys or your account. So if we weren't able to assist you today or answer your question, please reach out, email or phone number, either way, and we will absolutely assist you.